Travis Dufour. I promote Outlaw Wrestling.
And tell me about your wrestling personality. Have you ever wrestled?
Yeah, I personally, I wrestled for 13 years. And then, I had a neck injury, tough business. So now I promote.
And how did you get started?
Well, that's a loaded question. I mean, my first memories are of professional wrestling. It's something that I'm just crazy enough that I won't leave it alone. I got hurt and I'm still in it. So yeah, this is a lifelong love, I would say.
We'll crown the first ever Outlaw Wrestling champion. And as you saw, as most of you saw on our first card at 4:15, we ended up having a lot of people advance to round 2, as we can see on the board. And so tonight we will be dancing. So for the first contest, this is not a tournament match. Making his way to the ring first from Washington, D.C., weighing in at 235 pounds, Tank Evans.
And what is your favorite part about the sport?
I guess the fan interaction, seeing, I think the children as well, seeing the children's face light up and everything whenever they're seeing the action happen. I remember whenever I was a kid going out to shows, and it's something that you can't really explain. It's the best form of entertainment in the world.
And who inspired you?
Hulk Hogan, just like everybody else.
So tell me about a memorable experience while you've been wrestling.
Well, I did end up being, there's a bigger company out in Western Pennsylvania, and I was the grand champion for their company for 2 years, undefeated. And I got to be on television for them as well. Got to do a lot of traveling because of having that championship title bout, wrestling in Tennessee and all over the United States. So that was back in my younger days, and yeah, so now I'm here.
What is the one truth about yourself you discovered while you were wrestling or being a manager?
Well, one of the truths is that, having red hair, pale skin, and freckles can actually work in your advantage, because people typically don't like you, and they will boo you before they cheer you. So.
Wow.
Jakob Edwin. I'm a wrestler right now I'm in Gainesville, Virginia. I've wrestled several states. I've wrestled in Pennsylvania, Maryland, I think about 11 states. Right now, I'm still trying to grow. I've been wrestling for about 5 years, going on 6 now. It'll be 6 in September, actually. And I mean, that's me. I've watched wrestling like my whole life, since I can remember. So this has been more than a dream come true, and even more than that. I mean, that's who I am. I also like stand-up comedy and other things. I try not to let wrestling define me, but it's still a big part of my life. It's that you can't ignore that.
So tell us about your wrestling personality.
My personality is, it's been coined as this politician. He kind of rides the fence, and the thing is, my favorite part probably about it is he never actually mentions his politics. He never actually mentions whether he's Republican or Democrat or anything like that. He just kind of rides the fence and just does things that any dirty politician might do, and that tends to draw out the ire of the crowd the most. And I mean, for the most part, he's been a bad person, not your favorite, just because he kind of represents whatever you don't like. You know, he taps into that, just whatever shady feeling you get about your least favorite politician, that just comes out, you know, and I just try to represent that side of things without actually drawing a line in the sand or, you know, this is the side I'm on, this is the side I'm on. I very much stay very neutral, but it tends to draw, you know, people just assume I'm whatever they don't like. And I mean, sometimes they're sitting right next to each other, one person thinking I'm Republican, the other thinking I'm Democrat, and they still both hate me. And it tends to be the most helpful.
Is this personality that you chose or someone else?
It was something of a collaboration, but I'll give the credit to Greg Anthony. He is down in Dyersburg, Tennessee. We were training, and he just kind of offhand at first said, "You should be a politician," because of how articulate I am, and I speak very politically in that I try not to upset anybody. Diplomatically is the word he used. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. We just came up with little things to do for it, and I won a tournament called the Freedom Cup Tournament on July 4th, 2016, or the week of July 4th. And to represent freedom most, I had to start exemplifying these freedom qualities, or qualities I assumed exemplified freedom, and so that thus dawned the...
Is that how you got started?
No. I started in Martinsburg, West Virginia, in 2012 with Robbie Page, Wildman Robbie Page. He basically trained us in a gymnastics center. We didn't have a ring or ropes or anything. We laid down mats on concrete, and he helped us with a lot of mat wrestling and a lot of collegiate wrestling, and we had a little bit of fun in between, but it was a lot of hard work. It was 2 times a week. I was working nights at the time, so I would have to cut my sleep in half and come out to train. But there's so many other sacrifices you make. You know, that's something that really comes with the territory, especially if you're really trying to apply yourself to it. You can't half-ass anything. It's got to be such a commitment. So I was willing to sacrifice whatever sleep I was getting on Mondays and Wednesdays just to make sure that I was there training, and oftentimes I was the first there and the last to leave, or if not, close to. You know, I left with the last person, or I showed up with the first person, oftentimes, and just really committed myself. And those were the humble beginnings, and from there I think I got my first match with him in Pennsylvania, and so I just started traveling and just getting out more as he helped me, and then people I met and people I started to link up with, like anything, it's who you know and it's who you meet, and so you garner a lot of social skills in the locker room. So sometimes the locker room politics are as important as the in-ring politics too.
So as of this year, how many matches have you done in a year?
Oh, in a year, last year I probably did close to 50 or 100. But this year it slowed down a lot because I had to move from Tennessee. In Tennessee, I lived in Tennessee for about a year and a half, and I was wrestling twice a week, every week there. But then up here it slowed down a lot because you have to, every time you reintroduce yourself to an area, you have to start growing and start expanding. And so this year probably closer to 20 so far this year, 20 to 30. A lot slimmer, but it's been helping me with other things.
So tell me something, a memorable experience while you've been wrestling.
So I wrestle in Arkansas sometimes for a company called Championship Wrestling of Arkansas, and every show they do, they donate a large portion of their ticket sales and other sales to a good cause. Usually they pick a child that they've met or been introduced to in some form or fashion that has whatever disease. You know, they've done arm bars for Alex, and it's always Wrestle Raise, CWA Wrestle Raise in Arkansas, and there's a lot of there's a lot of happiness at those shows because everyone knows it's for a good cause, and we're able to help out this, the child that needs the help and help them with their medical bills or whatever. And it's a very heartfelt experience, and it usually helps that because they draw, the crowds are usually in the thousands, and so to be able to perform for that many people on my level now is pretty rare, and I'm happy every time I get to. So it's a very special experience for me, and so every CWA Wrestle Race has probably been a very, very special moment and holds a close place in my heart.
And what is the best thing about your fans?
Best thing about my fans, there's just a lot of respect. A lot of times they're just happy we're there, and that's you don't get that everywhere, and it's something that's just entirely different from anything I've ever seen. Anybody I've seen that goes from wrestling to other things like theater or like mixed martial arts or anything like that. In mixed martial arts, the fans aren't really there to interact with the fighters. They're just there to see blood. Or the theater, you don't really get to meet the actors all the time or anything like that. So this is something very personal, and they get really attached to you. So they really, every time they buy a ticket for you and they come and see you, they just appreciate what you're doing for them, and we can really appreciate what they're doing for us, because without them, there's no us. It's kind of cliche, but it's the truth.
What is the one truth about yourself you discovered while being a wrestler?
I'm really good with kids. That shocked me, because my whole life I was not. That would not have been something I guessed about myself, but it worked out pretty well. I'm pretty good around kids and being able to entertain them and just put them in a good mood.
Make me some dinner.
So go ahead and tell us about yourself.
My name is Bill Bains. I've been wrestling for 16 years on the independent circuit. I've been up and down from Massachusetts to Tennessee, every state between, out on the West Coast. I've wrestled for WWE numerous times and appeared in backstage skits for them as well.
What can you tell us about WWE?
When I wrestled for them, it was in 2009. I had a match there, and then they bring me in as what's called an extra talent, where I come in and kind of fill roles as they're needed. I have been a druid with The Undertaker. I have done Secret Service for when they had President Obama in. I have been security for Brock Lesnar. I've done a few other things I probably can't even remember at this point.
And how did you get started?
So my friend actually was in a wrestling school that was here locally, and he had a match coming up in Hagerstown, and he knew that I was into wrestling and was interested in getting into it. So I was like, all right, I'll do one match. So he trained me for it, where he taught me the basics of wrestling and how to protect myself, protect my opponent. I was like, I'll do this one match and I'm good. And 16 years later, here I am.
And how many matches do you normally do a year?
It really varies. Some years it's 30 to 40, others it's 60 to 70. It kind of depends on the schedule, what events are running in the area, and things like that.
And what's your favorite part about wrestling?
It's the interaction with people and being able to interact and get reactions out of them and just see what you can do to either get a boo or cheer from the fans.
And who inspires you?
I was inspired growing up by my mom. As a single parent, she kind of taught me to persevere and overcome and follow my dreams. And as crazy as wrestling seemed to be at the time of making money or being successful at it, they believed in me to do that.
So what is the best thing about your fan?
You know, the things about the fans is they're so passionate, and they come out and they support the events. And without the fans, there are no wrestlers, because if people aren't coming here to see us, we don't have anything to do. So, you know, their passion, whether they boo or cheer, is really the biggest thing.
All right. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Mr. Lord Laukbaum.
Is that your real name?
Yes, it is.
So tell us about your wrestling personality.
Well, quite frankly, it's a catch-as-catch-can wrestler from Lancashire, England. And he's a superior wrestler who's here to prove himself in the United States. And if I can't win at that, by wrestling fairly, I'll win at all costs.
How did you get started in wrestling?
Well, there was a trainer in Reading, Pennsylvania, who prepared me for something like this. His name was Erkane Wigenroth, and I trained in the dungeon in Main Mark Mess dungeon in Reading, Pennsylvania. I trained back in 2009.
And how many matches do you do in about a year? Average.
It depends. Here in New England, back and forth, we're probably looking at, I can do anywhere from 45 to 80.
And what is your favorite thing about wrestling?
The physicality, everything else in between. It's an art form, and it's brutality, all wrapped in one.
And who inspired you?
Oh, well, you have to look back at some of the legendary professional wrestlers long before anybody here was born. You're looking at Billy Robinson. You're looking at Lord William Regal, who was a huge inspiration for mine. And you have to look all the way back at Lord James Blias, who I really got the inspiration to step in the ring. And
tell me something memorable, an experience that you dealt with when you were wrestling.
Tragic? I was wrestling Jacob Young for the CPW Heavyweight Championship, and I thought I beat him. I went to celebrate. I looked for the belt. I turned around, and then next thing you know, I'm down for the 3 count. Crowd cheered for him and booed me out of the building.
And what is the best thing about your fans?
They're respectful, they're wise, and they all come from Lancashire, England.
What is the one truth about yourself you've discovered while being a wrestler?
I do have a vicious side.
All right, and can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Simon Shadows.
My name is Mike Skillz.
And tell us about your wrestling personality.
You know, I don't really have a character per se. Like, my dad was in this, so I can kind of get away with just being myself, you know what I mean? I've been around wrestling my entire life, so it's just an exaggerated version of what I am, be it arrogant and cocky and a little bit goofy, you know?
I'm the complete opposite of what you see when I'm out here. Out here, I'm a loudmouth jerk. And in real life, I try not to be like that. I think I'm a nice person, I hope, but the Mike Skillz character is completely opposite of that. You know, very cathartic. You say everything that you would want to say. If you had a bad day, you get to just scream at the kid and threaten to slap him. You know, I feel better now.
And how did you get started in wrestling?
I actually started in wrestling at the age of 12. I was refereeing. Like I said, my dad's been in wrestling. So from the time I was 12 to 18, I was reffing, and then when I was 18, I started training to wrestle. You know, so it's always been a very natural thing. Like, you know, my first steps were in a wrestling ring. You know.
I started about 27, which is a little later. Started selling tickets for a promoter in Pennsylvania, and just kind of got in. Had just kind of fell in as a wrestler. Discovered I wasn't very good at that, but I could talk, had a personality, so ended up kind of sitting the sidelines, which suits me great. Fits the comedic personality, everything like that gets to come out, so it fits me fine.
And how many matches do you do in a year?
Anywhere between 30 and 50 usually.
I probably don't do as many as that, maybe a little less.
And what is your favorite part about the sport?
I love interacting with people. I love being the center of attention. It's been a problem since I was a kid. Like, good or bad, I want everybody paying attention to me.
I have a little of that myself to get the feedback from people. A lot of the boys are like family, so getting around them and everything, getting the feedback off the fans. Even they're cursing and they're hating us, you know, we get that and we're getting the reaction. That's great.
And who inspired you? I'm guessing your dad?
Yeah, partially. Like, my biggest inspiration isn't wrestling related at all. Actually, Ian Mackay from Minor Threat and Fugazi, because they were an independent. You know what I mean? And that's where the real beauty of all of this is, because there's tons of corporate structures where you can try and fit in, or you can be an independent and do your own thing and be your own boss. You know what I mean?
My inspiration for this was a legend by the name of Roddy Piper. Growing up, I had a severe stuttering problem. Could not say my name in less than 2 minutes. From watching him, I was inspired to overcome that so I can come out here, cut the promos. I was blessed with the fact I got to meet him about 2 weeks before he passed away. I told him this, and he said, "Oh, well, I'm glad of it." I said, "I stole a lot from you." He said, "Well, you take it and you run with it," you know, which I did. If anybody sees me and they think, "Well, he got that from Roddy," absolutely. Absolutely I did. I was also inspired quite a bit by a managing legend by the name of Bobby the Brain Heenan. Again, if I do anything that people think that, "Oh, well, he got that from him," absolutely I did. And there's also a few others, but we'll be here all night. But my two main ones are the two of them.
That's amazing.